I'm excited more so about the note-taking ability. I think this is really, really cool, especially that it's becoming a standalone app. I feel like this is going to be one of Google's latest projects that they have out and see how it runs for a few years or so before they make it an actual product. What's up? What's up? What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Autonomous Income. I'm your co-host, Deuce Noble.
And I'm your co-host DJ. What's going on today, Deuce?
You know what, man? I'm a little under the weather, kind of congested, but we're going to get through it today. We're going to talk about a couple of things, a couple of headlines that's been out. Google has announced their Notepad LM or their Notebook LM, which is a standalone app that's going to be coming out for when Google I/O comes out. I think it's what May 20th around that time. So we're going to talk about their Notebook LM. We're also going to talk about there's over 250 CEOs that's been pushing AI to K through 12 students as well. So we're going to talk about what that looks like and dive in a little bit deeper. And also a little bit of fun news. An Australian radio show they've been kind of getting a little bit of backlash for using, right, for using an AI host for one of their radio shows and without telling people. And now people are, kind of upset about that. So I think we'll dive into that a little bit more as well and keep it cool. But I personally think it's pretty cool. But DJ, what do we think? What you want to get at first?
Man, there's a lot. I think I want to jump directly into that one because I think that's super interesting, especially, coming from the DJ life, right? And like, this is just interesting because, you think about radio, television, broadcasting, and like, if you think about radio, traditionally back in the day, you didn't necessarily see anybody. So you may not know that it's a artificial intelligence, at least nowadays is what I'm saying. So one, is it taboo? I wanted to get your take on this because I know that was something that you looked at, like, what is your feel for it?
So first, let's go ahead and unpack it real quick. So Australian Radio Network, ARN, CADA, CADA, their station, they were facing backlash. They used the AI generated host. The host name was Thy, Thy, and they used it without disclosure, right? The show ran for 6 months, before a writer revealed Thy wasn't real. Critics are arguing that ARN should have been transparent about its AI use. Now, I think this is genius, right? Especially, you got to think, like you said, radio isn't like it has been since, growing up and back in the day. I feel like, in my opinion, radio's kind of dying off, right? You don't get to see as much, fuel from radio stations or whatever they're talking about, right? It's kind of one of those taboo type of medias. And I feel like, why not use AI, right? Why not use an AI generated voice or person, right, just to host their show, right? So the station used artificial intelligence software developed by voice cloning firm 11 Labs. So we know 11 Labs is really, really good and super solid, right? So, and I think using some of those resources just to keep your show on air, right? And now you gotta think about, I don't gotta pay this host, or what I'm paying to have this voice specifically curated for my show is a fraction of what I'm gonna pay a real host, right? But
That
yeah, I don't
gets
know. I
into a
think it's
spicy topic as always, Deuce. We talk about this job displacement, right? So that's somebody who could have had that overnight job or some
that
intern that,
is
like to do the overnight or like, just think about it. Because during primetime hours, you probably want your primetime stars. And at this point, they're probably going to be real. But, if it's overnight or late night radio or something like that, you may not have, sometimes they used to just play music and ads or whatever, but now you could have like some sort of personality. But the big crux of this was that, they didn't disclose and people felt kind of slighted. But my thing is 6 months and nobody knew. Like 11 Labs is good and it's really solid. And you see a lot of that on YouTube out there, like people using those AI generated voice, to kind of do the what do they call them, no face videos or something, faceless
right.
YouTube
Faceless
videos.
videos. That's right.
And, some of them sound pretty good, but I don't have a gripe with it. I think if they let people know, like it would have made sense because, they wouldn't be as upset about it, but probably people are upset because they didn't know. You know what I mean? It's not that it just what they might have liked it, but the fact is like, oh, they feel like they were tricked, bamboozled.
Well, that's my thing. Like, I get it, but at what point are you really, really mad? Like, because there's nothing that they didn't cheat with or lie to you really about. It's more of a, admitted that, oh, hey, this is not a real person talking to you. But the thing is, like you said, the 11 Labs being as good as they are, the voice was really, really good. It sounded real. It had great conversations. I think this is really goes to show what 11 Labs and the radio station can do to push the envelope and the boundaries of what live radio even means, because they were able to do this, like you said, for 6 months without a hiccup is pretty incredible to me. And I think that there's no rules against it. So I don't know why everyone's mad about it. Like, let's say if there's competitions, or you know how sometimes there's giveaways. Like, as long as everybody got their stuff, but it's like, I guess there's a bit of deceit to say, oh, I didn't know. But I mean, what else? It's not like anything happened, right?
I know, and interesting. I mean, like the article says, I mean, like the AI had real fans. You know what I mean? So the thing is, also people build these. Like you're thinking of your favorite celebrity if you've never met them. Sometimes you build this kind of like you become a fan of who they are, right, or who you think that they are, and maybe if you can assimilate or whatever the case is, like now you have essentially somebody that's not even like a real, like not real as an actual human. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I don't. I think it's cool. I think from the technology standpoint, it's cool, and like I think we'll see a lot more of this. But it seems like it with some people they felt slighted.
No, I get it. I get it. But also, at the end of the day, genius move from this radio station, incredible technology from 11 Labs. I wouldn't mind seeing more of this. I get it that, from a sense that if you're mad because this AI essentially took someone's job, okay, that makes sense. But I think it's genius. I love it.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
that's
honestly,
just
yeah,
all
I
I
think
gotta
it's
say
cool.
about it.
Now I'm interested in hearing. I'll probably take I'll probably check to see if like they have some of those episodes, so if you can just like hear, because my thing is just like I hear some of these and you can still tell if it's AI because some of the words, it's not like 100% yet, and I think 11 Labs is definitely the
Yeah.
closest that I've heard. And
And I
Google
think that's
LM,
what tricked them
um,
up.
yeah, Google LM is also one of the ones that's really solid. Now, granted, I believe they only use like two voices for Ellen, but we'll get into that as we kind of transition over to there. But they're also, I don't know if you've heard them yet, Deuce, but they're really solid with their voices too.
Well, this kind of gets into the realm of, are there any really hard and fast rules about disclosing certain things like that when it comes to this stuff? Because I mean, like I said, this is in Australia, but in the US, radio is, you know, they're protected by the free speech laws, right? I mean, I may be a little, on the laws, but the free speech and, your First Amendment, right? The radio is protected by that. So I don't know what the hard and fast rules are surrounding
Like
like
if there's any
disclosing, hey,
legalities, if you don't acknowledge if it's AI.
right. And I get like, so, but also this is kind of some of the things we've talked about as far as like, hey, do we have to disclose this picture was generated by AI? Right now, this voice that you've been listening to has been generated by AI. Like it's going to be hard to tell, but there's going to be things out there like that where it's like
Well,
it
there are.
can trick you, right?
Yeah, they're working a lot on those digital watermarks and trying to do those things because deepfakes are easier now. I mean, cloning people's voice are easier now. You hear of people,
Right.
using AI to call people's parents and say, "Hey, I just need some money. Send it to
Yeah,
me right
that
away." You know what I'm saying? So like now, like I get a lot of that when it comes. I just think they're probably going to have to go across the board because of the fact that it's going to be so accessible for them to leverage those things. So this is probably going to catch some strays. You know what I mean? Like they're basically going to have to regulate. Even for radio, it's probably going to have to do some disclosures because of the fact that you'll probably have to disclose anything. Like eventually, maybe even those faceless YouTube channels or something like that, they may have to disclose that it's an AI voice because of the fact that people might start feeling. Some people maybe in this group of people, like whether it's like, well, who is it? Is it a real person or whatever? And maybe because radio is different, because usually there is like a radio personality. They even call it radio personality. You know what I
radio
mean? So,
personality,
yeah, right.
right?
Those things have been going together so long, right? So maybe that's where the rub's at. They're just like people might have like really felt like, oh, this, and then apparently it ruffles some feathers with some individuals. But it is interesting, and I'm a fan. Like, and I honestly just want to hear it because I'm just like 6 months is a a long time for that to go undetected. Like that's kind of wild because most of them you can still tell, but that just goes to show
Right.
11 Labs is really killing it when it comes to that AI generated audio.
No, like I said, I think it's dope. Cool, cool. Shout out to ARN and CADA radio station in Sydney. Like I said, I think it's cool. I hope you guys continue to do something like that, or have a spinoff where you have Thigh and maybe another automated radio host talk through a show or something. But anyway, all right, on to our next topic. Let's go. Let's dive into. Go ahead, DJ. What do we
No,
got?
I was going to say, yeah, in the vein of that, I wanted to bring up Notebook LM because one, it's been out for a while, so a lot of our viewers, you might have already seen it and had a chance to play around with it. But on Google, if you just Google Notebook LM, essentially what they have is where you can put in a lot of different data sources, and it has like a repository of information that you can kind of put into there. So you can grab a bunch of different sources. What it does is it creates like a podcast for you, which is just extremely cool. But with the Notebook LM is you can give it all of your information and it'll create a podcast based off of like your documentation, and that's just an easy way to kind of say it. But I mean, once you play around with it, but you give it a bunch of documents. So say if you're trying to learn a hard concept at school, right? Linear equations or whatever you may consider to be hard. And if you give it some resources, it can then you can have it generate a podcast. And this is one that blew up a couple months ago, maybe even longer than that. I forgot when Notebook LM like really hit, but a lot of people were just surprised because it was really good. And it was like the best sounding, podcast. And there's usually a male and a female voice. They go back and forth and they break down these concepts and they make it easier to understand. And it's, easily consumable because, where you give them all the documents. And the cool thing is like, it's based off of your data sources, right? So you can upload, whatever you're I think now it can reference YouTube videos, and now they have like a pro plan. So I think what it is like it gains so much popularity. That's why Google's like, let's make a standalone app. Because for one, now they even pulled in Notebook LM's capabilities into Gemini. So with Gemini, when you do deep research, right, with the new 2.5 Pro model, it'll actually pop up after the research is done to where you can click on like the little, I believe it's like a headphones logo, and it'll generate the podcast based off of your research that you've done. So if you had it, do a deep dive on a certain subject, then it'll generate that podcast, which is awesome. So that way you can listen to it on the road. I'm super excited about it. And then I hate all the other Perplexity, they do have a voice mode where it can reach out, but OpenAI, they currently don't have that to where where it would read specifically from deep research. But what you can do is you can copy it, paste it into Notebook LM. You can get that capability to kind of build out the podcast. Have you
Yeah,
had a
no,
chance to play with it yet? Yeah.
now I'm excited more so about the note-taking ability, right? And I would use this to record meetings or classes, right, that I'm be into, right? And I think that's going to be how I use it the most, right? And just to see how it would transcribe and do all of those things. So I'm excited about that piece of it. Um, but yeah, no, I think this is really, really cool, especially that it's becoming a standalone app. I feel like this is going to be one of Google's latest projects that they have out and see how it runs for a few years or so before they make it actual.
Yeah, they actually with this one turned it. I think because they had a little while ago where you can. I think if you pay for the Gemini Advanced or whatever, if you pay for that, then you get access to like Notebook LM's advanced features and comments. You can guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but you can also sign up. I think they did turn it into like a product where like you could pay for like an advanced version of Notebook LM. But you're totally right. Like I missed that totally in the beginning. Like I use it exclusively for the podcast, but you can also, yes, add your notes and put in a bunch of different sources. As you can see here, PDFs, your websites, YouTube videos, like anything that you copy as far as for text and whatnot, you can add all that up to a certain amount into Notebook LM. But the cool part is like you can see here is with the play button is that's when you can start what they call an audio overview. And essentially it sounds like a podcast, like I said, between a male and a female. Super solid.
The one thing I'm curious about is if they'll have a plugin for Google Meet. And if they do, it's up. Look, all I know is if they have the Google Meet plugin, it'll change the game for a lot of things. So
What would you use
especially
with the Google Meet plugin, like to?
just meeting transcriptions, recording or note taking really in meetings. Like I don't need it to record verbatim, but just high level key note taking. And if it's smart enough to do that, there's sometimes I have meetings using Google Meet. And a lot of times, like, hey, I may take my own notes, but if I can have something transcribe and do it for me, or and share the meeting notes with who I met with, I think that'll really change the game for me personally. But also, I think it'd be a great overall use case for things, right? Whether it's the audio overviews or, like you said, the key features of functionality. I really think that really, hopefully, it'll be available not on the premium tier, but if so, I might have to upgrade to the premium tier.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely suggest to just check it out. I mean, apparently, like when the standalone app, but even right now, you can go to Google LM or you can Google LM or Notebook LM. I keep saying Google LM, but Notebook LM, and then you'll you can sign in with your Google account. And like I said, if you pay for Google Advanced or whatever they call their service, where you get Gemini and its advanced models, then you'll get the plus version. But I definitely use this. I love the fact that they add that into Gemini. So shout out to the product teams and designers and the whole gamut of everybody who had to touch it in that space. But I think that was a really good implementation. And I hate that now. Just like, man, I wish OpenAI had that kind of embedded, like because they have their advanced voice set up. So I wish that they had something like that to also do audio overview or something inherently when they do deep research. But definitely check it out. Let us know what you think. But it's a great way, like I said, if you have something that's complex and you want to kind of break it down, or even if you want to share it out. So for small business owners, it's a good way for you to, if you want to put in your newsletter, right? You can drop your newsletter in there that you're getting out to your respective audiences, and then have it create podcasts. And that way it talks specifically, it's like a podcast for your users. So it's just a delighter. So if they don't want to read a newsletter, they can kind of listen to your newsletters podcast powered by Notebook LM. So definitely check it out. What we got next,
Listen,
Deuce?
listen, I'm excited for it. Like I said, I hope some of the features that come out really, really stick out and make a difference for my personal needs. But yeah, no, I think this is going to be dope. But yeah, all right. So transitioning to our next topic that we have. So we have over 250 CEOs are urging AI and computer science in K through 12 for higher learning. So earnings. Either way, there's CEOs and leaders from Microsoft, Etsy, Uber, American Airlines, bunch of companies, big name companies that are,
Airbnb, Indeed, Khan Academy. Yeah,
man,
yeah.
the list is obviously very deep, right? But they're urging and making sure that there's AI learning and computer science throughout K through 12, right? Which I am a fan of. I think it's definitely a great topic to learn at all ages, right? And I think that going forward in the future, I mean, there's other countries that is making this mandatory. And not saying just from a competition standpoint, I think that the way the future in technology is transforming, the need is there to learn at these ages, right? At such a young age, because whether you use it or not, it's one of those things. It's almost going to be like, hey, like you might use it every day at this point, right? What did they tell us when we were growing up? Oh, you're going to use these fractions every day, right? I'm like, hell no, I'm not.
Yeah, man.
But I think it's
I
one of the
mean,
things, like, getting to learn and understand some of these functions, right? How some of these arbitrary functions work, in whether it's computer science principles or just not augmented reality, but artificial intelligence. I think that's a great importance for that as well.
I think you hit on it right on the head. I mean, like you got to think it's in direct, not necessarily in competition, but I mean, and maybe it is what it is. It is in competition, but there are other countries that are out there that are already making it mandatory for their curriculum to have students learning about artificial intelligence. And the one interesting thing is, like, when we kind of just table like that, are we just talking about like from a business standpoint, from like a product standpoint, or from an engineering standpoint, right? I mean, I guess if you're saying computer science, and it's just like, how to train, and then different things like test time compute and all the things that have to deal with this is kind of cool that they're kind of ingrained that in. And I do want to see what that curriculum looks like and builds out over time. But conversely, let's think about this real quick. If AI is moving at the speed that it's moving at, is it like how like soon, because like we already know coding right now, all these companies are coming out saying that most of their code is being, like, maybe not most, I think Microsoft said, he said between 20 and 30% of their code is written. I think Meta, Mark Zuckerberg, he said at one point a lot of their code was being written by AI, and other companies came out. They were saying, like, we have all this code being done now. Coding is one thing, program it in the strategy, I guess, if you will, and you'd notice better, Deuce, with you being a developer and all that, but just like how to think in a programming mindset, right? Like in system thinking or whatever, or
Well,
design.
yeah,
Yeah,
and I
like
think
that's
I
one
think
thing.
a lot of those principles that you learn in computer science, right? So they go deeper than just programming and then coding. So I'll say this. So the Unlock 8 campaign is launched by code.org, and CS for All represents, their coordinated effort to make computer science and AI education available to every student in America, right? They're saying that the research shows that just one computer science course can boost early career earnings by 8%. And I think that's just
Show me the
what they're
money.
going for,
Show
right?
me.
So, and I think it's more so, like I said, it's not just about the coding and the programming, but some of those principles that you learn can go a long way in other things,
Yeah, because I
in
mean,
engineering
it's
as well,
problem
right?
solving. You
So,
know what I mean? Like how to
right.
think. Yeah, I mean, logically, and like how to use that. Because I remember my early development days. I mean, just thinking about that, and just like in those classes, like you think with logic, and you have to kind of map things out and plan things out, and I think that's what it is. They're teaching you like an art of how to break down a problem versus just like the coding aspect of it. But either way, I think definitely this is good. With my kids, with your little ones, I'm sure we're all going to be kind of pushing to this way, and we're already big proponents of STEM anyway.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, I mean, it's not about like, oh, taking away jobs. Now it's like, hey, how can I work with this to attribute to understand it? Like, you got to think. So, you know, kids in K through 12 now, right? Grade school kids now, 15, 20 years from now, are going to be running the way we're talking about AI taking over and transcending as it is right now. If they're learning these different intelligence and different things, right, as far as innovation and just anything, right? These platforms are going to be extremely powerful and you're going to need somebody to understand these things. So I think it just really goes to show that, hey, you don't want to be left behind because the technology is going to continue to grow,
And it's growing
continue to get better.
exponentially. Like it's still scaling. You know what I mean? Like quickly. Like we have all these releases, right? I mean, like it's like every 6 months there's like a pretty big shift and improvement in what these models are capable of, and then it enables all new capabilities. Like right, this year has been the year of AI video like generation. Like it's just came a long way, and then also with the competency of the models, AI agents has really made strides because of stronger foundational models. So just a lot of improvements. But yeah, you're right. Like I definitely think this is a good thing. I'm just interested to see like how much of it impacts, because right now, like you get some people on the field like, hey, we'll just be able to kind of use natural language to talk to these like vibe coding, right? Like if you're doing a
Right.
lot of vibe coding, do you really need to, go through and sit through, like go down the computer science path, right? So those, it's just interesting to kind of think of how that's going to be one day.
I think overall it's one of those things that you're going to, like you said, it's like the age old math question. It's like learning math in fractions where it's like, oh, you're going to need this one that like, what's E equals MC squared? What's what's that, the Einstein equation, right? Like stuff like that. Like, it's like, I'm never going to use this ever in life, but they're like, oh, you're going to need this for later. I think this is ultimately learning these computer science skills, these AI principles and practices. Hey, you might not use it later, but the fact that you've learned it, it may be able to be applied later down the line. And I think that's the whole, in my mind, that's the whole philosophy behind it. Like, hey, gain these foundational skills. That way, when it comes to a critical time, you may be ready to, hey, I can recall like, oh, I learned this a little bit. Oh, I know how this works, right? My mind understands why this process goes this way. So that's kind of how I understand it in advancing and aiming to get through that thought process.
Yeah, I like it. I think either way it's a win. It's definitely good. You have already taught STEM, right? I mean, and I've always pushed younger people that are around me, just to kind of open their minds up to kind of, if they want to, or if they're interested in technology, to kind of lean into this and kind of understand this. And of course, there's various ways. I mean, as it is today, just computer science, and there's, network, like a network security, cybersecurity, all of those things, right? There's different paths, but yeah, this is definitely just another path that kind of opens it up for a broader audience. But yeah, I dig it.
No, absolutely,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, so that was good, man.
But yeah, and I think, if you guys are interested in, a little more about going in depth in some of this topic, especially with the Unlock 8, with the CEOs urging and the education piece, maybe we can do a deeper dive. Let us know. I love this topic. I could talk about it all day. STEM education is, one of my passions. So this is definitely something important to me. If you're interested in learning more about that, hit us up. Drop some thoughts in the comments. Let us know. Or if you're interested in learning about some of the apps we talked about, like with Notebook LM, and if you want to see, I am pre-registered for when it comes out, and it should be dropping around May 20th when Google does their I/O event.
Which you can't
Um,
wait for. Google I/O.
hey,
It's that
listen,
season. It's that season,
eh,
Deuce, man. So there's Google
it's
I/O.
countdown. So look, we probably got some
WWDC
big
is coming
stuff.
up.
We got some big episodes coming up, just going over because Google I/O's first, and then I think WWDC is soon after. So we'll have some pretty cool information coming to you guys. So as always, like, comment, subscribe, and share, and we'll catch y'all on the next one.
Peace.
Peace.